Is. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It's Monday evening, a little after 6 p.m. We'll go ahead and get started. Uh, Last couple of days, anyway, we've talked from Isaiah 58, looking at what it means, uh, what it means to fast, what fasting really means, and not looking at it from a uh, physical thing where I'm depriving myself of food. It means so much more than that. It is a journey. It is a doorway. It is a knowing of self like you've never known self before. It is a trusting of self, uh, and it is recognizing that your inner peace, your inner tranquility, that love that you feel when you take this journey is part of a community, and that is who you are, and that is the strongest part of you, and that is you're recognizing uh, that not only are you a part of all of humanity, but you are one with everything that has life, and I mean nature as well. It invites you to see yourself as as being Elohim, and understanding that and moving to that, and there's a lot more to it, and I'm sure somebody here can explain it a lot better than I can, but that's where we were the last few days. And one of the last things we talked about, I think verse 12 in that uh, chapter spoke of repairers of the breach. And we spoke on that a little bit. And I know that was one of the things that George had pointed out to me. I guess it was last week now, not a couple of weeks ago. But so that was important too. And we probably could pick up there and look at that a little bit too, if someone has some more insight in it. I was looking for George's number because George was the one that I think had a question when we last thing we talked about yesterday. Okay, but I don't see him, and I'll ask anybody else that do you have any questions and or comments? No one?
Yeah, good evening, Ron. How are you?
I'm well, brother. How you doing?
And everyone else on the call. I mean, I'll try to disdain until, if George is able to respond. But something that you mentioned in terms of community,
Yeah,
um, and what sort of came to my heart was, looking at it in terms of a community of believers, in terms of us coming into that oneness as as a community. And when we believe that we are the ones that can make a difference, and to know that we can, how does, verse number 12, relate to being a repairer of the breach, and not only looking at it in terms of repairing the breach, but a restorer
yeah.
paths where people can walk in, can dwell in. And so community of believers, is really what kind of hit my heart in terms of us having the opportunity to repair those breaches. So I just wanted to share that thought in terms of just community of believers, man. Do we believe that we can make a difference? I'm done.
What is the breach in? I mean, there's a tear here. There is a separation here into what? Because it talks about a repair, and as you mentioned, restore, uh, which means at one time it served its purpose. It did what it was supposed to do, and because of uh, what has been mentioned in the previous verses, uh, there became a separation or a tear in this uh, fabric or whatever. So as we understand fasting, what do you see there? What is the what is it that needs mending? Anybody?
Would it be our thoughts, Ron?
Yeah, that's certainly a start. Uh, I think it's a total mindset. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's consciousness.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That awareness, what do we value now? What are we conscious of? What is important to us? You know? So
Would
understanding that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, would when you say what Audrey just said just now, I'm sorry, are we talking about the oneness of thought, the oneness of community?
Audrey, what did you mean by consciousness? We've
I meant our consciousness of our spiritual selves. Like, to me, the ancient ruins were everything we was the consciousness that we gave up or tore down, or when we took on those other gods, those other consciousness, those other things.
yeah.
When we took on Christianity, when we took on all those other things that sort of led us away from our spiritual selves. That's what I mean by consciousness.
That makes okay,
Carrying
that
that
resonates with me. Thank you.
Yeah.
And when you speak of consciousness, there's 4 grades of consciousness.
Mhm.
And when we look at it just from unconscious, not being aware of, then we can move to what we look at as simple consciousness, something that we think is simple, you know what I mean? Or again, not being conscious at all. But then there's the self-consciousness in terms of what we know to believe or what we know to understand. And I think religion has separated that oneness of consciousness in a way, whereas you're saying, Audrey, that now cause division. We know that religion is man-made. And so when we go back to look at the beginning, I think that the bottom or the last consciousness is intuitive consciousness or your intuition. And that's the inner voice or that spiritual entity, which we all have. And I think that we're now looking at it in terms of how do we repair that? And I believe that this is part of the reasons why we wanted to look at Kemet, as a pathway that we can connect back to that beginning. So those are my thoughts, on consciousness that I just wanted to, piggyback on what Audrey was saying. I'm done.
Proverbs 25:28 says, like a city that is broken into and without walls is a man, woman, human, who has no control over his spirit. So essentially, yeah, when we lose that spirit part of us, that spiritualness, we're like a city that's been broken down and in ruins.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing though, how the Creator has led us on this journey in the last couple of years, and even to put in George's heart to look at Kemet and get some understanding of that. Because if you ask the question prior to that, it's a pondering thing, because all we knew was religion. We know of truth and we're trying to find it now, but at one time all we had was religion. So this allows us to see the other side of that breach, see the other side of that tear that we're talking about. And as you said, George, the intuitive side of us, it allows it to connect back to us and show us the reality of who we once were, or who we are rather, who we truly are. But This is thank you. Anyone else? Uh, I saw something I want to talk about in verse 13 and 14, but before we do, George, I see you on the line. Did you have a question from yesterday? George Watson.
Good evening. The only thing that I wanted to say on yesterday was probably more so a statement. The one thing that I did gather from listening to what was said is someone said that there's a certain element of fasting that requires that you go without so someone may have. And that's the part that just stuck with me because I'm not the individual who's going to go one day without eating. That's just not me. However, that aspect of going without, and in going without, it doesn't mean that I didn't have it to give. It could mean I had it to give, and I'm just going to put myself on the back burner so this other individual experiences a different kind of arena. So that was the part that I gathered from the lesson. There's a certain element of fasting, because I've always heard fasting from the aspect of I went 40 days without eating. Like I say, that's nothing I'm going to do. Yet that part of fasting of, I believe you said, Ron, about keeping your mouth shut to keep them inner voices out your head, or something you said close to that. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the part of it I want to talk about because the least of this that this is talking about is food. That's one of the points we're trying to get across. The least of this from a very practical perspective, yes, it's talking about food, but we were looking beyond that and trying to see the spiritualness of it. When I mentioned or when you look the word up, it says to close the mouth or put your hand over your mouth. Everybody thinks of eating or food, but my thoughts were when it talked about your workers. Those workers are your thoughts. Those workers are you. If you can see all of this internal, so what are you fighting against yourself? Are you doing all these things from an outside that looks like I'm being religious and doing what I'm supposed to do, but the war is still on the inside of you, and you're warring with yourself because the self is still wanting to be gratified from the ego perspective, and that's what's running the show on the inside. So that's what I was talking about. Fasting is far more than that. The other thing to kind of answer what you're saying, George, I don't think anybody who's ever, unless you just have abundance galore, I don't think anybody who's ever raised children has never made a sacrifice. You make sacrifices. There are things you don't want to do, or something that takes up your time when you'd rather be doing something else. That's what this sort of reminds me of. If you could see everybody that has a need into place of your children, you readily make these sacrifices or do these things for your children, but would you do them for your neighbor? Would you do them for someone else? That's what more of what this is talking about. Not necessarily I go without eating, but if I see a man that has a need, it may be just someone that needs to talk or for you to listen. Are you willing to give of yourself, whatever that person may be in need of? Anyone else want to speak to that, please?
Well, I would say this, and just bouncing it off of you all. In order to sacrifice, I think whoever is sacrificing that individual has to have a pretty high degree of empathy. And one of the things that I work on individually is I try not to be a greedy person, because whenever I'm greedy, it eats at my empathy. Yet whenever I share or whenever I give, I think it improves on my empathy. So if an individual is sacrificing, because as it was stated many moons ago by you all, sacrifice is about what you will give up, yet it's also about what you will inherit. And that's the part that religion doesn't talk about. They don't talk about what you inherit or what you will gain. So it's just that with me, people who do sacrifice, and I think in order for one to sacrifice, you have to have some degree of empathy. Thank you.
Thank you. You sort of led us into that next verse, but want to make sure we look at this and understand repairers of the breach and what this means, and pulling all of these verses together that we've talked about, and as Audrey said, returning to that consciousness of truth that we once knew very well, recognizing who we are from that perspective, and shedding off the religious stuff that we've been fed or we've studied all these years. So that is all a part of repairing the breach. And as I do that in me, I also become truth or enlightenment to everyone who I encounter. So lot more to that though. I want to tie it together by looking at something though that I thought was interesting. First of all, any other questions or comments? Verses 11 and 12.
I have one, Ron.
Yes, sir.
I don't know about 1 and 12. I'm going back to when when Jesus fasted 40 days and 40 nights. And the word said he became hungry. And that's when the tempter came to him and told him, if you hungry, you turn this stone into, bread. He said, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word of God. So this the spiritual part of it. I mean, he wasn't talking about bread and water and stuff like what we think about. The physical food. He was talking about spiritual food. So what is the spiritual food that Jesus was trying to tell the tempter that we don't understand in here now?
Okay, that's a good question. I think that's where we are right now. George, did you have something on that?
Yeah, no, I was going to just say, Charles, when you talk about the spiritual food, I mean, looking at it again from, again, the Kemetic teachings, we're talking about those principles. And again, when we say spiritual food, the spiritual food of, honesty, the spiritual food of integrity, the spiritual food of balance, the spiritual food, of order, the spiritual food, of justice. And so these principles, I think, is part of what, we're continuing to talk about, because it's taking us back to the foundation. And that's what, the verse number 12 talked about. It talked about the foundations. And so as we begin to look at that, again, for me, Charles, I really appreciate what Audrey was saying in terms of, again, just looking at it. And again, the word slipped me what she originally said, but it's still all part of that foundation in terms of our heritage, our history. And so that's how I look at, the principles of Ma'at. I'll just put it that way. I look at those planks. I look at those as planks, building planks to work on. You know what I mean? We got a broken bridge. And so now how do we restore the breach? Let's get those planks back nailed up strong or put back together and feed on that spiritual food. Did that help a little bit, Charles? I'm done.
Yes, sir. You correct with what you were saying, because we've been taught that it meant food, and if we're gonna get it right, we got to find the spiritual part of that, of what he was saying, and what you said was true.
Okay. Good question, Charles. Anyone else?
Well, if you take away the, oh, my bad, whoever was gonna go ahead and talk, you can go ahead.
Go ahead and finish.
When you talk about what Mr. Charles stated, there's also food for thought. And the one thing I like about food for thought is it's something that makes you think. It's something that makes you examine the other side of the coin. And if not examining the other side of the coin, examining the sides of the coin, examining who has the coin. So there are some things out here just food for thought. And we have to, well, I'm not saying we, but I just enjoy food for thought. And the other aspect of it is that breach that has been broken, in the breach being broken with me, the one thing, I can't be mad at my mama because she made me write a letter to Santa Claus. Yet by my mother making me write a letter to Santa Claus, my mother also showed me how to write a business letter. So I would put Dear Santa Claus. And my mother would say, what if Miss Claus read it? Now I'd have to start all the way back over and writing a letter to Santa Claus. And eventually, as a child, I'm getting to the point where this gift ain't really all that worth it. Yet, in our spiritual walk, as a suggestion, can't be too mad at the people who were teaching you religion. They didn't know no better either. Or maybe they did know better. So in that breach, you can't be mad because mama took you to Sears and you sat on Santa Claus' lap. So in that breach, there has to be, hey, that was wrong. That was pretty foolish to do. Yet don't nail that person to the cross on that. Thank you.
I'm sorry I had to step away, even though it got on late. We are still talking about
Verse 12.
repairing the breach.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, and thank you, George. Anyone else, questions or thoughts? I see a part of that in verses 13 and 14, and I want to come back if we can, and then kind of tie up again the repairs of the breach. Because if you look at this, he says all of that, and then he goes to the Sabbath. And it's almost like, let me read it for you. It says, if because of the Sabbath you turn your foot from doing your own pleasure on my holy day and call the Sabbath delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and honor it, desisting from your own ways, from seeking your own pleasure and speaking your own words, then you will take delight in the Lord, and I will make you to ride the heights of the earth, and I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob, your father. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken. And let's see if I can read that from the Message Bible. Those two verses. If you watch your step on the Sabbath and don't use my holy days for personal advantage, if you treat the Sabbath as a day of joy, God's holy day as a celebration, if you honor it by refusing business as usual, making money, running here and there, then you will be free to enjoy God. Oh, I'll make you to ride the heights and soar above it all. I'll make you to feast on the inheritance of your ancestor Jacob. Yes, God said so. What is that saying? What does that have to do with what we're looking at here? The thing that stood out to me about this is, first of all, what is the heritage of Jacob? What does it mean by that? And
Ron,
yes, sir.
Before you get that far,
Okay,
may I ask you a question about the other one?
of course.
If you watch your step on the Sabbath and don't use my holy day for personal advantage, what does that mean? Don't use my holy day for personal advantage. Is that talking about don't hold it over people's head? Don't make them feel guilty about not celebrating? What is that talking about?
That's a good point. What do you guys see there?
I wasn't asking that because I had an answer. I was
Okay.
really asking it because I was searching for one.
So if I were to say that the Sabbath is again a state of mind and is not talking about a 24-hour period, what is that saying? Is it saying to always to honor who you are, always honor the Creator, and you do so by how you treat everybody else? The respect that you treat everybody else, you see the deity, you see the enlightenment in others, and you treat them accordingly.
Well, Ron, I mean, again, just to interject, as you read it, it gives us the right way, or it gives us the true and false way of fasting, right? But in this case, when you read what you did, personal advantage,
Yeah,
what's the personal advantage? You know what I mean? And that's, I think, the wrong way to look at it. But, sometimes, and I'm not saying in all places, but sometimes in religion, I mean, the personal advantage, you know what I mean?
that's
In
the first thing I thought about too, Georgia, from a religious setting.
Right. I just
Yeah.
want to share your thoughts. I'm done.
Sabbath is a period of contemplation, right?
Yes.
So if Sabbath is a period it is a period of contemplation. So we're saying that don't use the holiday as a personal advantage during your personal contemplation. Having said that, then Sabbath would be every day.
Yes.
So we are to avoid this personal advantage, seeking personal advantage based upon the holy day. Let's say, for example, that a holy day is Easter, right?
Okay.
If a holy day is Easter, then what advantage do you take for your holy day? Making a donation for a resurrection donation, or bringing people together on Easter because you know you have a large number of people and you make efforts to milk them. Now, don't get me wrong. I know Easter's not a holy day, okay? This is talking about don't use Sabbath. Holy days means a day that is set aside for something, doesn't it not?
Yes,
Then holy means to set aside or to separate something for express purpose,
yes, make room.
to make room, right?
Yes,
So don't make room on the Sabbath for what you want. Does that make sense?
yes. Did you mean to me? Okay.
You take this call.
Anyone else? Does that make sense?
Yes, it
So
does.
Ron,
Yes, sir.
so the Sabbath is made for myself, you, and everyone. And most of it, huh?
He says, right.
Yes,
Okay. Mostly that's where you start, that's where you contemplate, you know, where you at in the space with God or yourself. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah. I'm trying to think of an example. Certainly, when we're on this phone, we're recognizing the Sabbath, and I don't mean just because we're on this phone with the Bible open. I'm saying if you're at a place of I'm opening myself up to receive, I want to receive something here. I have an expectation here
Yeah.
that this is changing not only my life, but we're really filling the universe with love and peace and the things we've discussed. I have that expectation. So that not only that, but even when we get off the phone and we contemplate, or you walk into someone on your job or at the supermarket or whatever, or you just something crosses your mind, or you can be in the Sabbath and be totally alone, and so it has no particular day or time period, or it does not have a certain duration. That this day, Sabbath day, it just means a period of enlightenment. When I see some enlightenment, so we as we see the newness of what all this stuff means, we also kind of flushing out the old stuff that we have come to think of as being truth. So the Sabbath is any and every day that you desire to be one with the Creator, that you desire to see something from a clearer point of view.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Charles. I'm sorry. Does that help you, Charles, what Ron just said?
What Ron said, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
it got a whole lot more light on it.
okay, great. So when you say that it's a period when that's set aside for you to contemplate, right?
Yes.
If it's our express desire to be continuously enlightened, then whether we are thinking about it being a day, a Sabbath day or not, it still happens. We are still being enlightened. Therefore, we are always doing in this period of Sabbath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we always are seeking to be enlightened, whether we are asleep, whether we are reading, whether we are working, it doesn't matter. We are open to enlightenment. Does that make sense so far?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, open for enlightenment. Now, don't use this enlightenment, this opportunity for personal advantage. How can you use that for personal advantage? Can anyone think of a way that that can be used for personal advantage? The period during when you're contemplating enlightenment, or your desire is 24/7 to receive enlightenment. So you're constantly in the Sabbath day.
Only thing I can think of, Pastor, is using what you know, using the enlightenment to sort of impress people, to help you to gain something from it, whether it be prestige or money, to show people how much you know, to kind of flaunt it in that way. That's the first thing that came to mind for me.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ron. Could it be that using it for your personal advantage is making sure that you always get paid for what you know? Could it be that? Not only that, of course, but a part of that.
Yeah.
Making sure that you receive the credit for what you have seen or what you've been shown. Because we have seen people with some understanding, and they take that understanding and transform it into a ministry for the express purpose of making money. We've seen that a lot. And for prestige, we've seen that a lot. So if that being the case, then you're not treating this Sabbath, this period, as a day of joy. You're not looking at it as being a day set aside for your enlightenment about Elohim. So by doing that, if you're not looking at it that way, then you're not really expressing, I'm sorry, you're not really serious about receiving enlightenment on a continuous basis 24/7. If you are, then you will honor this period. You will honor your life, actually, by refusing business as usual. It's like, you know what? I'm not going through these changes anymore. I know how things were done in church, and I know that that's not the way they were supposed to be based on, spiritual understanding spirituality. So I'm not playing those games anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Come on, y'all.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yes,
makes
it does.
sense.
It does.
And I think part of that is how people use it to manipulate other people or to control them or to take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Monetarily or however.
Right.
Yeah.
And the running here and there speaks to that, how, whatever that you just spoke about, running here and there. Because it's not necessarily always making money, but manipulation causes you to run here and there and looking for that label as a go-getter. And all you're doing is manipulating people. So when you refuse to embrace business as usual, then you have the opportunity to be free. To that word enjoy, if I'm not mistaken, also come from a word that means praise. You have an opportunity to enjoy God, Elohim, So is it saying that you have an opportunity to enjoy who you are?
Yeah.
And when you do that, when your joy is found in the understanding of who you were created to be, then all the business as usual, you will soar above it. You will be above it. You won't get caught up in that anymore. Because you are in a different space. All of these things that are usual business is earthbound. But when you free yourself from that, your enlightenment is purely spiritual. So when it talks about rising above it all, it's not talking about rising above people. It's talking about those things that you was once caught up in. Can you see that? So it's freeing you from those things that you were once caught up in. And that is when you are in a different space. And then when that happens, you will feast on the inheritance of your ancestor Jacob. Now, the fasting leads us up to this portion, and now here we are. So, what is the inheritance of Jacob? I'm not talking about when he dressed himself up to be Esau. What is it? When you have that inheritance of Jacob, did you read that yet?
No, I was going to go back to Genesis to look at that.
Okay.
The thing that stuck out to me here is he does not mention Israel. He says Jacob. And what is that inheritance? And it is not the I agree with what Pastor said. It is not the
blessing of Esau.
The blessing when he stole the blessing from Esau. It is not that. That's what we've been taught that it was in Genesis 27, when he talks about the dew of the ground and the God, Lord will bless you and people be under your feet. That's not what he's talking about. This I almost missed. And I read this thing 3 times and I saw it. He's talking about when you gain your balance, when you see your femininity, you will recognize who you are. You will have the opportunity to become Israel. You will have the opportunity to become. But recognizing your balance is what ushers in these feminine principles that we've been talking about for so long. Listen to this. This is now I'm at the latter part of Genesis 27. Okay, this is when Esau had said, when Daddy died, I'm gonna kill you. So his mom said, hey, you got to get out of here. I want you to go to my family's place, and I'll send for you. You stay there till your brother cools down a little bit. But I want you to watch this, because the first blessing that he gives, that Isaac gives him, Rebekah's not a part of. Rebekah's not a part of that. But look at what she says to Isaac in verse 46. She wants this boy to go away, but she has to do it the right way. She says, and Rebekah said to Isaac, I am tired of living because of the daughters of Heath. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heath like these, from the daughters of the land, from what good will my life be to me? She's saying something there. Now, move on a little bit. So Isaac called Jacob, blessed him, and charged him and said to him, you should not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise and go to Padam Aram, house of Bethel, your mother's father, and from there take to yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And may God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of people. May he also give you the blessings of Abraham to you and your descendants with you, that you may possess the land of your sojourning, which God gave to Abraham. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but the hidden treasure in this, the mystery in this, is when he says, go and take a wife, not from here, not from this consciousness. You will not see who you are. Go and get from the land of Bethel, your mother's father. And from there, take yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brothers. In other words, if I fast forward a little bit, Rachel and Leah is what brings him balance. They represent balance. This is what he needs. This is showing the spiritual side of the essence of who we are. If not, and the women themselves are not just the spiritual part. It's the coupling with them. It's the masculinity and the coupling with them. This verse 46 in chapter 27, when Isaac listens to Rachel, that's a coupling. That's spiritual. That makes this a true spiritual blessing. She opens his eyes to something. Remember, he's old. He can't see. This isn't talking about something physical. His eyesight now is spiritual, and she becomes his eyes. She becomes his eyes. While he looks for himself, while he tries to see for himself, he cannot see. He's blind. But when she becomes his eyes, he sees. This is balance. This is ushering in the spiritual principle. So what am I saying? The inheritance of Jacob is your recognizing who you are by following the path of fasting. And when we follow that path of fasting, it opens you up to see who you are. This is a spiritual principle. Your femininity is a spiritual principle. And your masculinity is not complete without it. Not to complete this journey. Not to complete this journey. So when this takes place, or he gets there, he ends up with both these young ladies. One represents one thing. One represents, and this is me talking because we probably need to look at this again. One represents what is needed. One represents what is needed. One represents what he sees as his beauty. One represents the pleasures that he sees. But both of them coupling together is what brings about the nation. This is the inheritance of Jacob. And I wrote it down at work, and I did not bring it home. I think Esau means to squeeze. So Esau is that part of us that kind of pushes you in the direction that you're supposed to go.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am, because I know I'm missing a lot of stuff here.
There was also a time when Jacob wrestled with the angel, quote
Yes.
unquote. And he wouldn't let the angel go until something happened. I can't remember what that something is. What happened there?
Didn't he say, Pastor, help me if I'm wrong, didn't he say, I won't let you go until you bless me?
Until you bless me.
Yeah.
And then
And what was the blessing?
Israel. You shall be
Israel.
called Israel.
Okay.
That's where his
Is that part of the inheritance?
it would have to be for him to be the father of many children.
Reason why I say it's an opportunity because that's where we are. This is a prerequisite. This is a prerequisite. So he does not say the inheritance of Israel. He said the inheritance of Jacob. We are in the process of becoming right now. You become Israel.
So,
And this journey, here's the beauty of it. Sorry, Pastor, let me say this, hush. The beauty of it is when your eyes are open, your desire takes you the rest of the way. We are following a path now. Nobody's making us take. It is desire that is pushing us here. You follow your desire and you become Israel.
so Rebecca and Leah speaks to us about what you need and what you desire.
What you desire.
So what he's saying then is your desire must be coupled with what you need. In other words, if you only go after what you desire and anything that you see that you feel is not what you are desiring, it's what you need, but you won't take it.
Yes.
You won't walk.
Laban is very much necessary.
You won't walk in it. Is what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is that Laban appeared to be the trickster, but in actuality, what he actually did was lay the foundation for Jacob to become to. Oh my God, I see it. I think.
Okay, talk it out.
I think I see it. Jacob's name means supplanter or heel grabber,
Right.
one who takes something from someone else. And when his name was changed from Israel, it was not, his name was changed from Israel at that moment. It was, you have the propensity to become what Israel is. And when Jacob sought Rebecca because that's what he wanted. He was still
Pastor, for the record, Rachel.
Okay. Oh, Rachel. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just, correct me because I'm seeing my mind is going faster than my mouth.
Okay.
He saw Rachel for that's what he wanted, right?
Yes.
And Laban gave him Leah. And Leah turns out to be what he needed. And Rachel was what he wanted. However, when he embraced the both of them and became the father of a nation, meaning brought into existence those 12 between Leah and Rachel, that's when he became Israel.
And the two came together.
Yeah, that's when he became Israel.
And he desired that. He asked to be blessed.
But this is the other part of that.
Yes.
Leah said, I'm not going to have more boys than my sister. So in her womb, she changed it to a girl, remember?
You're right.
Big girl born, and she changed it to a girl. Now, what does all that mean to us today? In our desire to be who we have been destined to become, we have to be willing to give up what we want in order to get what we need. And when we accept both, when we accept what we need, then our desires, as it says in Isaiah, our desires are met. We receive our desires. And if we look at what Leah means, the name actually, and Rachel means, we will find the need and the desires. Now, both of them are feminine.
Mhm.
We desire to be one with our Creator. That's our desire. But what we need in order for that desire to be fulfilled, we need to understand the principles of Mayat, which are feminine.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I could
I
remember.
want to run. Hold one second. Audrey, will you give me to say something? Speak to that.
Go ahead.
No, I thought you were getting ready to speak to it. That's all.
And see, the funny thing is, I was going to ask you about that anyway, because you said something about it yesterday. You talked about what the 42 are in relationship to Isaiah.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm just thinking, and I'm thinking about the book of Thomas, where the saying 48 says, if the two make peace with each other in a single house, if your need and desire can come together, if your heart and your mind can come together in peace, then you will say to the mountain, move, and the mountain will move. That's our inheritance.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, Pastor, yeah. If we can get there in terms of our desire and our need, we can do anything. We can say what we need to happen, and it'll happen. Anyway, all that's going through my mind.
Right.
Okay.
But that was important.
Excuse me, which is the heart and which is the mind before you go on? The heart is the desire and the mind, I'm sorry, the mind is the desire and the heart is the need. Which is which? I'm sorry, George, for cutting you off.
Are you good? I'll come right after you.
Well, I think the heart would be the desire, and the mind would be the need.
I
don't know. It could be the other way around.
I think it is, because our minds is where we started, right?
Yeah.
Our minds is where we started, because our mind was processing religion, and we were like, that doesn't make sense. So we desire to know more. And at that point, that's when we began to process from the heart as opposed to the mind. And that didn't happen overnight, of course, because we stayed in the academic stage for a while, processing with the mind. Does that make sense? Audrey, Barbara?
I'm not sure. I just wanted to hear some more about that, but I yield for George.
My mind is running, and also in terms of what's being said, and I was just giving thought to when we talk about the mind. I mentioned earlier in terms of the three virtues of the Kemetic teachings in terms of thought, words, and actions. But when we look at the mind, as a man thinketh, I say as a man and woman thinketh, so is he or she. But we get caught up where our thoughts kind of illustrate how religiosity, works, but by psychology. Now, this is the Kemetic term. Psychology is the heart soul. And I believe where we're moving from is in our thoughts in terms of what we've been taught. We're experiencing now, I think, operating more from the heart soul in terms of repairing the breach. And so as we look at this, and Ron, you mentioned balance, I see that as another plank.
Yeah.
When we talk about moving from what we know to what we must do, you know what I mean? And how our mind can be cluttered. We talk about it in terms of clearing space, the clutter. And I think now we're just diving more esoterically into that aspect of our heart soul And so I know I may have mentioned that before, and I think I was speaking with Vermel. And, you know, I truly, you know, believe that desire, and we say the proof of desire is in the pursuit. So if we're pursuing, you know, this heart, soul, in terms of where we are, I think the revelations now is manifesting, creating manifestation where we're able to see it a little bit more clearly. I hope I ain't confused anyone, but that's my thoughts.
No, George, you made me, you helped me think about it a little more clearly, because the mind and the heart, you're talking about the conscious and the unconscious. And the heart soul would be the unconscious. So we would be living from our subconscious, because the spirit is so deeply in there that we're living from the unconscious, as opposed to I think desire would be our conscious mind, and need would be our unconscious mind. It would be that heart soul place. Anyway, that's how I see it.
That makes sense because we don't always know what we need. We don't. I was looking at it from a different space though. Pastor, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
And I was just saying, Rachel is the mind, and Leo is the soul, the heart soul that George was talking about, meaning that we knew what we desire. We did not that did not come from our subconsciousness, right? That came from our conscious mind, based on what didn't make sense to us in terms of, religious edict.
Right.
So traveling from our conscious mind, we would use Strong's Concordance. We did all the research. All of this is our conscious mind moving towards trying to meet our desires. And then when we began to see the allegory of the scriptures, of course, it took years for us to get where we are. But when we started seeing the allegory, that is an allegory, and when we started understanding the allegories, it was at that point that we were able to enjoy what we needed, or to begin to see what we needed, as opposed to what we desired. And when we saw what we needed, now that became our desire. Does that make sense? When we saw what we needed,
Yeah.
that became our desire. And when that became our desire, it opened up a whole new world to us. Because now the desire is to understand what these allegories mean. And the desire is no longer coming from our mind. The desire now is coupled with what we need. And now we are able to talk about the Haru in Egypt. We're able to talk about the root of spiritualism coming from Kemet. That in itself is giving us what we need. And the desire, we had a desire for that. So when we sought to meet and come to a clear understanding of Kemet and the spirituality of it, we did not do it the way we had done things in the past. We did not do it academically.
Yeah.
We ended up embracing it, and we talked about it, but we didn't study it. Yet we ended up on the same page because our desire became one with our needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so I was going to ask somebody to kind of sum up the inheritance of Jacob and what that means. I think you just did. Does that make sense? Do you see that in Isaiah 58? How the conclusion, because that conclusion sums up everything that those other 12 verses of 13 verses were saying.
Well, I see it more in the book of Thomas.
Okay.
Where Jesus says, if the two make peace with each other, desire and need, in the single house, meaning in yourself,
Yes.
then
Yes.
you'll say to the mountain, move, and it will move.
I see that. Yes. I see that.
How many ways does the scripture tell us that when it talks about being unequally yoked? I mean, how many ways does the scripture? It must be something we need to get. You know, we need to gain some understanding of.
Well, with the number of times it says that, it got to be something that is imperative that we understand.
Yeah.
Well, here's my question. Here's my question to everybody.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, George. I forgot you had spoken a long time ago.
And Thomas, you know, I think I was reading, when the one becomes two, then what will you do? Now we know about Lord becoming one, but I'm just saying again, now when the one becomes two, what do we do? And I'm just trying to look at it now because, you know, me, the individual, right? You know, I know myself, but like I say, when I got married, right?
Mhm.
To and about my wife looking at me like, oh boy. When the two, what do we do?
I think, George, when we come, what we are looking at spiritually, right? I'm going to say this, and please help me to see it if it's not clear. That Friday night that we met, right? We became one like never before. What I'm saying is this: our desires and our needs became one because of that serendipitous experience of being, of the wisdom, rather, of what we were looking for. The way we thought we were going to get it, we had a serendipitous experience. We didn't get it that way. It was given to us because of our desire. The understanding of Kemet, the spirituality of Kemet. Now, that being the case, where are we now, George? Where are we? We are seeing that the planks are in place. The planks are in place. And the repairer of the breach is simply one, meaning that the 13 has become one. 13 is the number that holds everything together. It intertwines everything. So everything has become one now. So there is no separation at all, other than being physically, separated spatially. But spiritually, the unicity of it is in existence right now, which says to me that we are the mystics that we sought to be or to see. We talked about seeing and understanding mysticism, right? We are the mystic. What does that mean? From this day forward, everything that we study, everything that we are shown from the scriptures, from the books that was taken out of the Bible, from the understandings of Amun-Ra, all this, we are going to begin to experience immediate changes when we speak about things that are harmful to humanity. All I'm saying is this: we are no different than a tapestry that was sewn together. for an express purpose. And so if you look at the quilt that's on the piece of cloth that's on the what is that? Wallpaper for foundation. That piece of cloth is representative of everyone and everything that was necessary to become one when in terms of escaping. You are one with everyone who is along that line of escaping. If you look at that from us being a tapestry, then we are that energy, that power that infuses humanity to the extent that we bring out the worst in humanity so that everyone can see what they need and begin to desire what they need. And when they desire what they need, then they will be open to what we put in the macro. Does that make sense? And we are in a better place now than we have ever been in terms of the unicity, the oneness of us. The oneness not only of us, but the energy that we feed from the questions of the people who are on this or on Zoom or on the call, by asking questions, simply by being there, the presence. We are able to receive that energy, and in doing so, we are able to perceive what humanity, the needs of humanity, because all of the energies that we are receiving from gives us an understanding of that. Even though we are not processing it with our minds, our soul is processing it. And that is what led us to this place of the repairer of the breach. This is, hear me well, and I feel this all over me. This is the door, what you call it, that you walk across to go in the room. Help me.
Threshold.
Yes, thank you. They ain't know that. I'm just looking at them, they ain't know that. This is the threshold. They're understanding the breach, understanding the fasting. It's the threshold for crossing into this portal of pure spirituality.
So what is that breach? That breach is then repairing the breach is understanding and embracing the mind, heart, and the spirit as one entity instead of three separate entities then?
It is
I
indeed.
see the breach. I see the breaches as that in a spiritual sense. And we do it through the principles of Ma'at. We're able to do that through the principles of Ma'at. So I'm back to, because this has resonated with me, the part that talks about which is which, because we got to know that. And so I tend to believe that the mind, as I think we've already said, as Audrey said, is it represents consciousness, conscious reflections in the heart, unconscious feelings, emotions, etc. But if we listen to our heart, which represents that spiritual tetheredness to the universe, we are not blinded by the conscious mind that tries to deflect and distract and cause us to be logical when we need to think illogically. In other words, we don't need to be thinking, okay, the usual way that we think, 1 plus 1 is 2, when the heart says, no, 1 plus 1 is 3. So when we get back to Leah and Rachel, then Leah, I was there, but now I'm stuck again. Sorry.
No, this is probably the most important discussion for us crossing this threshold that we've ever had, because it is encompassing everything that we've talked about. Everything. This is it. This is bringing into this space the understanding of the allegory in the scriptures, and realizing that the source was not the writers, the source was Kemet. And bringing all of that together, this is what gives us the power, the energy to cross that threshold. And our lives from this day forward will never be the same. You are talking about the experience of something resonating with you. And I'm sure that some of you, as I, are experiencing this right now, and as this discussion has proceeded. That's your life now. That's our life now. Things we don't understand and never read are going to resonate with us, and we will be shown the understanding as our mouth opens, because when our mouth opens to speak, that means that this voice, this natural voice is one with the spirit, because it cannot speak without it, cannot make a sound without it. So I'm saying, when I say that our lives will never be the same again, I'm not saying that you're going to be looking out of the corner of one eye trying to see what changed. You're going to see the change much faster than you thought. And don't be disturbed by some of the things that you see, because some of the things you are going to be shown are things that you have overlooked purposefully. And it's not going to happen like that anymore. We are going to come face to face with things in our lives, things in the lives of humanity that we never actually wanted to come in contact with, but we're going to do that now. Why? Because the spiritual man experiences all things. The spiritual man knows all things. The spirit experiences all things. The inhibiting factor in experiencing all things is the mind. And as Barbara said, being logical about it. There is nothing logical about spirituality, nothing. So now we dispense with logic and embrace the energy of reality. And the energy of reality is what we have been seeking all along, because Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, brought into existence this idea of the human. So what happened with that? What is it saying? It's saying that Elohim is also the deliverer. Elohim is also the healer. So what I'm saying in essence is that we are everything that we are supposed to be. Why? Because we crossed into Kemet and begun to repair the ancient ruins and began to see that the ancient ruins are the things that we have known all along, but the destruction of them was not in a type of destruction that we see logically. The destruction of them was the overshadowing of them by our logical thinking. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's not where we are. That's who we are. There is no where at all. That's who we are. Because the spirit, you cannot locate the spirit geographically. It's not a where, it's a who. That makes sense.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how we see each other individually. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we understand we are not individuals. No longer, we are not. I'm done. And I hope that not so much resonates as it is, you understand what I'm saying. And if it doesn't, then I hope it resonates with you. If you don't understand it, rather, I hope it resonates.
Hey, Pastor.
Yep.
That's why God said he looks at the man's heart, because man looks in the outer part of a man.
Yes. Yes. And that is more than what you said, Charles. Because the outer part of the man is not only that body. The outer part of the man is how he functions in this material world, how he interacts in this material world. That's the outer appearance of the man. The outer appearance of the man will tell you where the man is internally. If you're loving kindness, then that's what you are going to express in this material world. If you say that you're loving kindness, but you are someone who seeks self-aggrandizement, that's also going to show. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So it's not about the color of the skin, whether it looks like a male or looks like a female, tall, short. It doesn't matter. What matters are your actions, your material actions in this earth. Are they guided by your logical mind, or are they guided by spirituality? Spirituality is not logical, it's not illogical. It just is. Period. You can't define it. I'm done, Charles.
I was just saying I can see what you were saying.
Okay.
And that's why the old saying say, your actions speak louder than your words.
Yes. Yeah. That speaks to that as well. Yes, sir. It does.
Mhm.
So when we talk about the outer man, or let's keep in mind, we're not just talking about physical appearances. Okay. We're talking about emotional expressions as well. I'm done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
This has been good. Any questions, y'all? I'm like Pastor, and I hope this has been clear. Any questions? Has it been clear?
It's been clear to me.
Okay. Well, maybe this is a good place to take a pause and ponder this a little while and pick back up Monday. I mean, excuse me, today's Monday or Saturday. Okay.
Sure. Because I don't think we're done with this.
Okay. All right then. No thoughts or questions. And again, if you do, just jot them down or send a text or something. And that's where we'll begin Saturday. Okay. But thank you. I think it was a beautiful discussion. And we will resume Saturday morning, 10 a.m.
Okay.
For the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye-bye.